Listen closely, because this is not just another message. It's a divine summons. There are matters in the spiritual realm that can no longer be ignored, and one of them bears your name. Yes, you. You're not watching this by chance. There's a decree from heaven being released right now. Entire families live under cycles, patterns, and spiritual inheritances that enslave generations. But what heaven is revealing today is that among them all, there is one who was set apart, one who carries a mark, one who, to the eyes of the world, may seem ordinary, but to the eyes of the eternal is the chosen one. If you've always felt like you didn't quite fit in, like you carry a restlessness no one understands, like you see life, right and wrong, and the invisible in a way that feels different, that's not a flaw. That's evidence you were set apart to break through. Out of everyone, it's you. There's only one in your family, only one in this lineage. And heaven is telling you today, your family's story will never be the same after you. The chains that bound your ancestors, the cycles that repeated for generations, will come to a final end today, because you were raised as a turning point. And no matter how lost, out of place, or even rejected you may have felt, understand this. What separates you is not rejection. It's the mark of your calling. You are not your family's problem. You are the answer. Get ready, because what's always chased you, what always held you back, what caused many in your lineage to get lost, to fall behind, or to live a whole life without ever understanding their true worth, that ends today. Because there is a decree from heaven being released over your life. What you're about to hear is not just a beautiful speech or a motivational message. It's a revelation that will reposition your life within the divine plan. And pay attention, if you thought this was just about you, you're mistaken. This is about your lineage. What God begins in you doesn't end with you. Prepare your spirit, because in the next words, I'll reveal why, out of everyone, you're the only one who makes it, and how your entire lineage will be impacted by this spiritual decision that begins today. If this message felt deeply familiar to your story, stay with this video, because what's about to be said may open your eyes in a way no one ever has. Today you'll understand why so many things in your life felt wrong, even within your own home. Why you were always the one who had to stay quiet, the one who was blamed even when trying to do right, the one who felt out of place even in your own family. But listen, when you understand all of this, don't use the revelation to start blaming others. This isn't about rebellion. It's about awakening. It's about realizing that in the midst of the environment that hurt you so deeply, that's where God set you apart. It was in the middle of conflict that heaven hid someone he would later raise, and that someone is you. If you grew up in a place where it felt like your name was never even remembered, where your siblings were treated as the favorites, where you were always the most pressured, the most ignored, the most excluded, tell me in the comments. Share how your childhood and upbringing were, because those who are truly chosen know what it's like to be treated as invisible. But today, everything starts to shift. Because what was done to leave you behind will become the very stage where God will make you remembered. Now take a deep breath, because what I'm about to share with you next may change the destiny of your entire lineage. From a very young age, you sensed that something inside you didn't quite fit. While everyone around you seemed comfortable living a shallow life, full of repetition, conformity, and generational patterns, you simply couldn't accept it. It was as if a silent voice within you was screaming that this wasn't who you really were. You tried to fit in, to please, to ignore the unrest. But it didn't work, because in the midst of your own home, among your siblings, your relatives, your people, God chose you, and that cannot be ignored. What few understand is that this calling never came with ease. In fact, it's often marked by rejection, misunderstanding, and even persecution within your own family. How many times were you seen as the odd one out, the misfit, the one always out of step? How many times were you accused of thinking you were better than everyone else, simply because you carried convictions, values, and insights others couldn't understand? And maybe it wasn't even because you tried to stand out. Maybe it was just that your very presence, your way of thinking, feeling, questioning, and not accepting certain things exposed what others preferred to keep hidden. While your siblings followed the current, you questioned. While your cousins repeated the same mistakes, you stepped away. While others normalized division, addiction, mediocrity, emotional chaos, betrayal, and cycles of stagnation, you carried a war inside you, a war you didn't choose, but one you were set apart to win. And yes, many times you asked, why me? Why not my brother? Why not someone else in my family? The answer is never simple, but in the spiritual realm, it is clear. Because God doesn't choose the most prepared, the most praised, or the most aligned with the family mold. God chooses the one with the spiritual structure to sustain a decree that changes destinies. And if you look honestly at your own story, you'll see how everything has pushed you toward this place. Notice the friendships that didn't work out, the relationships that fell apart, the business deals that failed, the paths that closed, the doors that never opened. It was all divine protection. God didn't allow you to get lost in the same maze where others in your lineage were lost. And even though you felt frustrated, wounded, forgotten, it wasn't heavenly rejection, it was redirection. Because you carry a spiritual responsibility that only you can fulfill. This is not exaggeration. It's not empty talk. It's the truth that must be spoken. If you don't take your place, your lineage will remain trapped in the same cycles. If you don't understand who you are, no one else will. Because there is no one else. It's you. Only you. And don't be fooled. The weight you carry isn't due to bad luck, coincidence, or misfortune. It's the result of a spiritual mark. And that mark makes you uncomfortable where everyone else feels at ease. It makes you restless where everyone else says everything is fine. It makes you question what everyone else has accepted as normal. And that's exactly what qualifies you. Because God didn't call you to repeat your family's story. He called you to be the key that unlocks a new cycle, to be the link your ancestors were never able to build, to be the bridge that connects your generation to the redemption your eyes haven't yet seen, but which is already written in the spiritual realm. That feeling you carry, that no matter how hard you try, someone's always trying to pull you down, that someone is always throwing words, looks, criticism, rejection disguised as advice. That's not just about people. That's about spiritual resistance. It's about forces that understand that if you take your place, chains will be broken, pacts will be undone, cycles will end, and an entire lineage will be realigned with God's purpose. Why wasn't it your brother? Why not your sister? Why not that cousin who seems more talented, more outgoing, more connected? Because God doesn't choose based on appearance, resumes, or family convenience. God chooses based on what only He sees. And even when you didn't know there was something special about your life, God had already seen, set you apart, and marked you. While people looked on the outside, God looked on the inside, and He saw what human eyes can't see. He saw structure. He saw resilience. He saw a spiritual capacity that you may not even know you carry yet. So understand this, the fact that it's you and not someone else is not random. It's because there's a spiritual strength in you that others don't have. A hunger for truth that others don't feel. A holy unrest that won't let you accept what others call normal. And if you felt like you've been living through loss, setbacks, and frustrations, now you begin to realize that all of it was part of a preservation process. Because God didn't just choose you, He protected you, shielded you, set you apart. And He is positioning you today as the key for spiritual realignment in your lineage. And if you think that's powerful, just wait until what I'm about to reveal next, because this is only the beginning. There is a spiritual reason for everything you've lived through up to this point. And no, none of it was random. Every episode of rejection, every disguised betrayal, every door that closed in front of you, every person who, intentionally or not, tried to diminish you, discredit you, or make you believe you'd never be more than just another face in the crowd, all of it was part of a strategic attempt to neutralize what the spiritual realm has always known about you. You carry something most people don't even notice, but the darkness has recognized it from very early on. And that's why, unlike others in your house, your family, your lineage, you were the one who faced the greatest resistance. It wasn't coincidence. It wasn't bad luck. It was a targeted attack against the one who holds the key to the spiritual realignment of an entire bloodline. If you look closely, you'll notice recurring patterns, relationships that never worked, family members caught in endless cycles of poverty, emotional illnesses, addictions, separations, division, conflict, confusion, patterns that pass from generation to generation, as if there were an invisible script running everyone's lives. But in the middle of it all, there's you. And curiously, you could never settle into that environment. You could never just accept that your life would end up like everyone else's. That restlessness was never a flaw. It's always been a sign that you carry a spiritual calling others don't. You're not just different, you are the exception in your lineage. You are the one heaven raised up to be the definitive interruption of that cycle. But this is where most people don't understand. Being chosen has never been about ease. It's actually been the opposite. Because you're the one who holds the key, your life has been systematically attacked from an early age. How many times have people from your own house, your own family, risen up against you? And it wasn't just about everyday arguments. It was about conscious or unconscious attempts to break your identity, to steal your voice, to make you believe that you were no one, because if you believed that, your whole lineage would remain exactly where it's always been. Trapped, limited, and spiritually defeated. Why wasn't it your brother? Why not that other relative who by human standards seems smarter, more qualified, stronger, better positioned? Because God doesn't choose based on what the eyes see. He chooses based on what the Spirit carries. God saw in you a structure that the others don't have, a strength that isn't natural, a spiritual hunger that can't be explained, but that has kept you from settling for a life that's empty, mediocre, and bound by the same emotional, spiritual, and generational chains that destroyed so many before you. And if until now you thought all of this was just a string of bad luck, of failures, or unresolved stories, understand this once and for all. This was spiritual warfare, a silent war waged in the background of your story. And this war had one very clear goal: to keep you from waking up to who you really are. Because the moment a chosen one takes their place, it's not just them who rises. It's an entire lineage that begins to be restored in the spiritual realm. And this is exactly what God is communicating to your spirit right now. The rebuilding of your lineage starts with you. Only you hold that code. Only you have that key. Only you receive that decree in the spiritual realm. If you don't take your place, no one else will. If you don't break through, the cycles continue. If you don't rise, your bloodline stays bound. You were set apart to break the cycle. And everything that once looked like loss, you now see was protection. Everything that looked like delay, you now see was preparation. And everything that looked like rejection, you now see was God hiding you for a time such as this. What comes next is no longer about asking why it was so hard. Now it's about understanding that it was precisely the difficulty that forged you, that shielded you, that prepared you to carry what's being released over your life right now. Because from you forward, a new story is beginning to be written in the spiritual realm. And if you think it's already been deep up until this point, know this: there's something even more revealing, more intense, and more transformative being released. And that's exactly what I'm about to help you see now. Now that you understand who you are and why you were set apart, There is no longer room for doubt, no margin for hesitation. You can no longer pretend you don't know, don't notice, or don't feel it. A spiritual alignment is taking place right now. And this alignment is no longer optional, it's urgent. Because if up until now you've understood that you were chosen, now you must understand that this is not just a spiritual title. This is a mandate. This is a divine summons. It's a decree that demands a response, action, and immediate positioning. Everything you've lived through until now wasn't chance, wasn't coincidence, and certainly wasn't punishment. It was formation. It was spiritual preparation. It was training disguised as pain. It was protection disguised as rejection. And the reason is simple. Someone who carries a key like this cannot afford to be fragile, cannot be volatile, cannot be led by the opinions of others, nor be a hostage to their own past. You carry a responsibility that was given to no one else, and if you don't understand this, your lineage remains lost. But if you do understand, then get ready. Because heaven is authorizing today a breakthrough that redefines your story and everything connected to your name. Maybe you've looked at your own life and thought, why so many delays? Why did everything seem harder for me? Why has my life never flowed like it did for others? Why has there always been this weight, this invisible battle, this sense that something was always trying to stop me, sabotage me, isolate me? The answer lies in the spiritual realm. What weighed on you wasn't just a natural difficulty. It was a spiritual uprising against the one who holds the unlocking code for generations. And when one in the family awakens, all of hell trembles. Because when one takes a stand, curses are broken, cycles are ended, covenants are undone, and an entire bloodline begins to breathe a new era. God knew exactly who you were before you ever understood it. He shielded you, preserved you, and prepared you. And now He positions you. Because there is something on you that others in your family do not carry. This is not about being better. It's not about superiority. It's about mission. It's about the spiritual structure only you have. The emotional resilience, the capacity to endure, the spiritual hunger that never allowed you to settle. That's not ordinary. That is the mark of a calling, and there's no use resisting, running, or trying to ignore it. Because the more you try to avoid it, the more uncomfortable everything becomes. There is no comfort outside the place of your assignment. And your assignment is this: to be the key of spiritual alignment for your lineage. So listen closely. The time has come to break with every narrative that's ever been built about you, to break with the lie they made you believe, that you weren't capable, that you weren't enough, that you weren't strong, that you weren't chosen, because you are. You are the key. You are the link. You are the answer. And if you don't rise now, you're effectively signing a spiritual agreement for the same cycles that have destroyed generations before you to continue. But if you choose to rise, everything changes. Because God didn't choose someone else. He chose you. This is the moment of decision. There is no more room for spiritual neutrality. Either you rise today as the key to your lineage's transformation, or you remain hostage to the cycles you already know the end of. And from the moment you choose to rise, the spiritual realm begins to shift. Heaven aligns, and the earth starts responding to that decision. What was delayed starts accelerating. What was shut begins to open. What was resistance begins to yield. Because God does not move on behalf of those in inertia. He moves for those who choose to walk in faith, obedience, and alignment. If you got this far thinking this was just another video, understand this. This is not content. This is a decree. This is not a reflection. This is a summons. This is not information. This is spiritual alignment. And what God is leading you into from now on is not just a new season. It's a new story. Because from you forward, your bloodline will never be the same. So listen carefully, because there's no turning back now. Everything that has been revealed up to this point has led you here. And there is no longer room for doubt, no room for internal negotiations, no room for excuses you already know only keep you stuck in the same cycles. What God is revealing to you now is that you are not just someone who was set apart. You are the key, the living key that opens a new spiritual cycle, not only in your life, but in the story of your entire lineage. And if until now you believed everything you went through were losses, setbacks, or delays, it is now clear that all of it was the process that forged you for this very moment. You are not an accident in your generation. You are an intentional design from heaven. What was hidden is now revealed. What seemed confusing now makes sense. Every pain, every rejection, every silent season you lived, every time you felt alone, out of place, like a stranger in your own house, your own family, all of that had a spiritual reason. It was God separating you, preserving you, shielding you from being contaminated by the same system that enslaved generations before you. And now you understand. You weren't set apart to be a spectator. You were set apart to be the answer, the interruption of patterns, the bridge that rebuilds, the link that reconnects your bloodline back to the original purpose God established before the world existed. So take a close look at everything that has surrounded you until today, that which seemed normal, acceptable, inevitable. The arguments, the division, the addictions, the emotional, spiritual, and often even material poverty. What was so common in your lineage now has an expiration date. Because what once bound you now sees you rising, with spiritual awareness, clarity of identity, and divine authority. And there is no more room for the doubt that once paralyzed you. Because God did not bring you this far to inform you. He brought you to align you, position you, and activate you as the key of transformation for your generation. Keep this truth in your spirit. From now on, you no longer walk as someone who carries a wound, a doubt, or a mark of rejection. You walk as someone who carries a decree. And this decree is not small. This decree changes histories. This decree breaks cycles. This decree transforms destinies. You carry the code that realigns your lineage, and what God has established will not be broken, will not be delayed, will not be stolen, and will not be interrupted by any spiritual or natural resistance. And if you've come this far, know that heaven is witnessing your spiritual decision, because something shifts starting now. And what changes is not just your perception. What changes is the spiritual world around you, because from this moment on, the chains that held your story lose their authority. Because now there is a living decree released, affirmed, and established over you. You are the key. You are the link. You are the answer. It doesn't matter how many tried to make you believe otherwise. It doesn't matter how many times you almost gave in to the lie that you weren't capable, weren't strong enough, weren't worthy, or didn't have value. That lie ends today, because heaven's truth prevails over you. You are not a result of chance. You are not a misplaced piece. You are a divine project, carefully designed for this moment. And from you forward, God writes a new story. A story where the cycles of pain are interrupted, where division gives way to unity, where lack gives way to abundance, where confusion gives way to clarity, where the curse gives way to blessing, where what once seemed impossible bows before the authority of one who was called, set apart, and activated to manifest in the natural realm what had already been decreed in the spiritual one. If you've understood that within your lineage there's only one, you, then listen closely. Just as you were set apart as the only one, this new time must also be declared through 3 actions that seal in the spiritual realm what God has just released over you. This is not a suggestion. This is positioning. First, write in the comments the declaration that activates this decree. Type now, "I am the key to my bloodline." This is more than a sentence. It is a milestone, a visible spiritual code that marks the moment you rose up. Second, don't keep this to yourself. Those who are chosen carry responsibility. Send this word, share it, bring light where there was once only the repetition of cycles. And third, subscribe here. Those who carry this calling cannot walk disconnected. This is a source, a place of alignment and preparation for those who understand they were born to be a key of transformation.